The scream sliced through the summer air like a knife through butter, sharp and jarring, pulling me from the haze of my morning coffee. I froze, mug halfway to my lips, the bitter roast steaming against my face. Outside my kitchen window, the neighborhood pool sparkled under the Georgia sun, but it wasn't the water's shimmer that caught my eye. It was her Karen, the HOA's self-appointed queen, standing at the edge of my backyard pool with her 2 kids splashing like they owned the place. My pool. My private. Fenced in. Not your damn community playground pool. I set the mug down, the ceramic clinking hard against the countertop. My jaw tightened. This wasn't the first time. Karen had been pulling this stunt for weeks, letting herself in through the side gate, acting like my backyard was her personal resort. I let it slide once, twice, chalking it up to neighborly nonsense. But today, the air smelled of chlorine and entitlement, and I was done. I pushed open the back door, the hinges creaking like a warning shot. Karen. My voice carried across the yard, sharp enough to make her kids freeze mid-splash. She turned, her blonde bob swinging, sunglasses perched like a crown. What do you think you're doing? She didn't flinch. Instead, she crossed her arms, her lips curling into that smirk, the one that screamed, "I'm untouchable." Oh, relax, Jake. It's just a pool. The kids are having fun. You don't even use it half the time. My blood boiled. The audacity. The sheer gall. I could feel the heat creeping up my neck, my hands balling into fists. This is my property. Karen, you can't just waltz in here. Her eyes narrowed, and she stepped closer, her flip-flops slapping against the concrete. You know, Jake, the HOA guidelines say we're supposed to share amenities. You're being selfish. Her voice dripped with that patronizing tone, the kind that made you want to scream just to drown it out. I laughed, short and bitter. Share. This isn't an HOA pool. It's mine. I paid for it. I maintain it. Get out. Her kids were staring now, water dripping from their hair, their inflatable unicorn floating aimlessly behind them. Karen didn't budge. She pulled out her phone, tapping the screen with manicured nails. Fine, she said, her voice icy. We'll see what the police have to say about this. I blinked. You're calling the cops. On me. For your trespassing. She didn't answer, just turned away, already dialing. The kids scrambled out of the pool, their wet feet leaving trails on my deck. I stood there, the Georgia heat pressing against my skin, the distant hum of cicadas mocking the absurdity of it all. This was my home, my sanctuary. And now, because of Karen, it felt like a battlefield. By noon, the police were at my door. 2 officers, one young with a buzz cut, the other older, his face weathered like he'd seen too many Karens in his time. I explained everything: Karen's trespassing, her kids treating my pool like a public splash pad, her refusal to leave. The older cop, Officer Daniels, sighed, rubbing the bridge of his nose. Look, Mr. Carter, technically, she's in the wrong. But HOAs, they muddy things up. She's claiming you're violating community rules by locking her out. Locking her out. I nearly choked. It's my property. Daniels raised a hand, his voice calm but firm. I get it. We'll talk to her. But you might want to put up some signs. Make it crystal clear this is private property. Avoids headaches like this. I nodded, my chest tight with frustration. The cops left, and I stood in my doorway, watching Karen across the street, her arms flailing as she ranted to Officer Daniels. Her kids sat on the curb, heads down, clutching their pool floaties. For a moment, I almost felt bad for them. Almost. That night, I couldn't sleep. The ceiling fan whirred above me, its blades slicing through the humid air. But all I could see was Karen's smug face. The way she'd stood there, acting like she owned my life. I tossed and turned, the sheets sticking to my skin, the faint chlorine scent still lingering from the day. By 2 a.m., I was done. I grabbed my laptop, ordered a dozen private property, no trespassing signs, and paid extra for overnight shipping. If Karen wanted a fight, I'd give her one. The signs arrived the next morning, bright red and impossible to miss. I spent the day hammering them into the ground around my fence. Each strike of the mallet a release of pin-up rage. By dusk, my backyard looked like a fortress. The signs screamed their warning, and I felt a flicker of satisfaction. Let her try now. But Karen wasn't done. Oh, no. She never was. The next afternoon, I was in my garage, the smell of motor oil and sawdust grounding me as I tinkered with an old bookshelf. That's when I heard the rattle of my gate. I stepped outside, and there she was, tugging at the padlock I'd added, her face redder than the signs. Her kids weren't with her this time. Instead, there was a man tall, wiry, with a baseball cap pulled low. I'd never seen him before. Karen, what the hell? I called, striding toward her. The air was thick with the scent of cut grass and her floral perfume, a nauseating mix. She spun around, her eyes blazing. You think you can lock me out? This is a community. Jake, you don't get to play king. The man beside her shifted, his hands in his pockets, watching me like I was the intruder. Who's this? I asked, nodding at the guy. My gut twisted. Something about him felt off, too quiet, too still. This is my cousin, Mitch. Karen snapped. He's staying with me. And he agrees this is ridiculous. You can't just put up signs and act like you own the whole neighborhood. Mitch didn't say a word, just stared. His eyes were cold, like a snake sizing up its prey. I squared my shoulders, my voice low. Karen, I'm not arguing anymore. This is my property. Leave, or I'm calling the cops again. She laughed, a sharp, grating sound that echoed off the fence. Go ahead. They'll see your little signs and laugh. You're making a fool of yourself. Jake. I pulled out my phone, my hands shaking with anger. But before I could dial, Mitch stepped forward, his voice low and gravelly. You sure you want to escalate this? Man, could get messy. My heart thudded. Was that a threat? I looked at Karen, expecting her to rein him in. But she just smirked, like she'd brought a guard dog to do her bidding. The air felt heavier now, the cicadas louder, their hum buzzing in my skull. I didn't back down. Try me, I said, holding his gaze. Mitch shrugged, stepping back, but the tension lingered like smoke. Karen huffed, tossing her hair, and they left, her flip-flops slapping the pavement with every step. I stood there, my phone still in hand, the weight of the encounter settling in my chest. This wasn't just about a pool anymore. The next week was quiet, too quiet. I kept waiting for Karen to pull another stunt, but she didn't. Instead, I started noticing things. A broken flower pot on my porch, scratches on my gate's lock. Once, I swore I saw Mitch's cap bobbing in the shadows across the street at midnight. My nerves were shot, every creak of the house making me jump. I started checking the security cameras I'd installed, their grainy footage showing nothing but squirrels and passing cars. Still, the unease gnawed at me, a constant itch I couldn't scratch. Then came the neighborhood meeting. I hadn't planned to go. HOA meetings were Karen's domain, her stage to play dictator. But when I got the email about an urgent discussion regarding my property, I knew I had to show up. The community center smelled of stale coffee and cheap air freshener, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. Karen was there, of course, holding court at the front, her voice dripping with fake concern. We need to talk about Jake Carter's behavior, she said, her eyes locking on me as I slipped into a folding chair at the back. His signs, his locks, it's divisive. It's tearing our community apart. The room murmured, a mix of agreement and discomfort. I felt eyes on me, judging, weighing. My pulse quickened, but I stood, my voice steady. Karen's been trespassing on my property for weeks. She's been letting her kids use my pool without permission. I put up signs to protect what's mine. That's not divisive, it's my right. A few neighbors nodded, but Karen wasn't fazed. She held up a stack of papers, waving them like a flag. HOA bylaws say we share amenities for the good of the community. Jake's violating that spirit. Spirit, I shot back, my voice rising. You're violating my property line. Karen, you called the cops on me for protecting my own home. The room erupted, voices overlapping, some defending me, others siding with Karen. Then, out of nowhere, A voice cut through the noisiest soft, trembling voice I didn't expect. It was Mrs. Delaney, the elderly widow from down the street, her hands shaking as she gripped her cane. "Karen," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "You've been bullying people for years. You did the same to my late husband, pushed him to sell our garden plot because it didn't fit the aesthetic. Jake's not the problem. You are." The room went silent. Karen's face flushed, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. Mrs. Delaney's words hung in the air, heavy with truth. I hadn't known about her husband, but the pain in her eyes was raw, undeniable. For the first time, I saw Karen falter, her confidence cracking like thin ice. The meeting ended in chaos, but the tide had turned. Neighbors started talking, sharing their own Karen stories, fines for minor infractions, threats over mailbox colors, petty power plays. By the next week, the HOA board was under review, and Karen's reign was crumbling. She tried to fight back, posting rants on the neighborhood app, but the screenshots of her trespassing caught on my cameras were the final nail. The cops issued her a formal warning, and the HOA stripped her of her position. The last time I saw her, she was loading boxes into a moving van, her kids nowhere in sight. Mitch was gone too, his shadow no longer lurking. I stood on my porch, the morning air cool against my skin, the scent of fresh coffee grounding me. The pool sparkled behind its locked gate. Mine again. I sighed. A long, slow release of months of tension. Justice wasn't loud or flashy, it was quiet, steady, like the sunrise creeping over the horizon. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I could breathe.